A few days ago, a user on the 7 Days to Die forums asked FunPimp's employee Roland if there was any new news regarding Alpha 21. Unexpectedly, Roland responded with, "Nobody wants to talk about the details more than me, but alas I cannot. Maybe if someone could figure out what 7 Brutus denied 5 means, I could work up something new." Now before your mind races and you try to figure out what 7 Brutus denied 5 means, the forums figured it out in a couple of hours, with one user stating, "Brutus, the Hunger Games character, has some association with spear throwing, it appears. Brutus denied could mean the removal of spears in favour of an actual power attack." Now this user pointed out that this ignored the 7.5 part of the code, but Roland would show us mercy and clarify that the user was in fact correct, saying, "My clue does reference a character in the Hunger Games, and in particular, something he did in the 75th Hunger Games, that's 7.5, and it does signify a change to a weapon we use in our game that he used in that game." Quote, "Needless to say, if you ever thought the spear was lackluster and thought it should do a bit more damage plus a power attack thrust rather than a throwing attack, you will be happy. If you only played this game because throwing the spear was one of the core elements of the game for you, then I guess let's get hashtag Speargate started." Unquote. What this of course means is that presumably in Alpha 21, the spear will be receiving a much needed rework, which will increase damage and replace the old throwing mechanic with a much desired power attack. This is a change that many of us have been desperate for, since Alpha 21 did a good job of making more playstyles and weapons stronger, with buffs to intellect and agility in the form of stun baton fixes and quest buffs for intellect and a huge buff to archery for agility. It really highlighted how weak perception and, more importantly, spears were on higher difficulties. Now please save the "I like spears" comments. That is all well and good, but it is pretty much objectively true that on most difficulties above Nomad, especially if Nightmare speed is on, spears are possibly the weakest option in the game. Not impossible for skilled players of course, but so annoying to play that it went far beyond a simple challenge and became a form of self-torture. And frankly, if you disagree, you either didn't try it or you're just a masochist in denial. Anyway, a basic damage buff for the spears is already pretty good, but the removal of the throw mechanic, widely considered to be useless at best, actively suicidal at worst, is going to be a good buff for spears because now we'll be able to stand our ground with power attacks, and really make use of that bonus range of the spear accompanied with the bonus stagger and decapitation chance, which most good Insane Nightmare players will tell you is a huge factor in winning your fights early on. Now technically the spear did already have bonus stagger and decapitation, but this was in the form of its throw, meaning it would likely miss if you were playing on fast speeds and aiming at the head, so you'd have to settle for a body shot, which does drastically less damage, at which point you may as well do a light attack and just hold on to your spear. Now spears, assuming they're buffed sufficiently, should be more on par with the knuckles or knives in terms of how good they'll be for Insane Nightmare, which is to say, viable at least. I sincerely doubt spears will replace clubs as the king of Insane Nightmare, but hopefully they'll feel much more viable and a lot nicer to use now that they can be used like all the other kinds of melee weapon. It was a fairly common joke in my live streams when asked about spears to say that unironically using a shovel as your primary weapon was more viable than spears because at least shovels were in the strength tree next to Sexual Tyrannosaurus and had an actual power attack. And you know what? I still stand by that. As they are in Alpha 20, I would rather do shovels only than spears only, but Alpha 21 will probably change that. Now in case you're wondering, yes, Roland is a real FunPimps employee and the 7 Days to Die forums are an official source of information. Do take this all with a grain of salt though, as it could all just be a cruel joke, but maybe that's just my trust issues showing. While you're here, it's also worth showing off this little clip shown by another FunPimps employee showing the player throwing a frag grenade through a partially destroyed door. If you were unaware, doors are going to be receiving some big reworks in Alpha 21, with partial damage allowing you to hit through them with melee weapons, guns, and it seems throwables now as well. And another gif here shows a fancy new stone spear model, which I think looks nice, if a bit blunt, and we can see that it actually has a unique animation for the power thrust. Admittedly though, I thought the devs would be a little lazy and reuse the shovel power attack animation like most spear power attack mods do. It's good to see the devs really learning from the modding scene, as well as hopefully reading the hundreds of angry tweets we've been sending them about hashtag buff spears, and if they really are listening, which I have admittedly been guilty of accusing them of not doing in the past, then I look forward to seeing Alpha 21 and the other things they have in store. I think since the first Alpha 21 news, this spear change is the only thing that has actually captured my interest. But what about you? Do you like spears the way they are? Are you happy about the new changes? Is there something you'd do differently? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, consider subscribing for more 7 Days to Die Alpha 21 news and eventually guides when the update releases. In the meantime, if you want to get caught up on all the other news so far, then check out this video on the right. Thank you to my channel members and patrons for making this video possible, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.